Hello everyone, and welcome to the Miss Pink Digital Podcast, home to everything digital marketing, brand building, and tech. And on today's episode, we are going to be talking about the Meta Ads Health and Wellness Update. This is probably one of the biggest changes Meta has announced within their platform since the iOS update back in 2020. And we know how that went down. Now, if you're in the health and wellness industry, you would have already heard about this. This change has already been rolled out across accounts. But in case people don't know what this is, or in case you're in the health and wellness industry and just haven't checked your Meta Ads account, it essentially is an update whereby products that can fall under the health and wellness industry will essentially not be able to optimize towards bottom of funnel events. So that's your things like purchases, add to cart completions, checkout initiations. There's even middle of funnel events as well that are being thrown in there, which of course is a very impactful change. We all know if we run Meta ads out there that bottom of funnel events are key in running not only a full funnel strategy within your account, but optimizing towards an efficient outcome within your account, because you're optimizing towards purchases, you're optimizing towards return on ad spend, and you can't really have a fully efficient strategy without being able to optimize towards those bottom of funnel actions. Alongside this, there'll be messaging restrictions within Meta as well. Now, Meta were already quite strict on things like product claims or referencing personal attributes of a user, but now messaging for the health and wellness space will need to become even broader than it has been previously. And I think any instances where you're mentioning specific health related concerns that are to do with the user in your content, that will see restrictions as well. Certain advertisers' deliverability will be impacted by this update, and some advertisers may even be completely restricted from using Meta ads. Another big thing about this update is things like custom parameters on ad URLs may be restricted. So these are essential when it comes to tracking off the platform via third-party tracking tools, whether that's GA4, whether you use any attribution tools like Phosphor. They pull from these custom parameters that you implement within your account. So tracking via third-party tools may also become difficult if you fall under this update. So needless to say, it's a pretty big one and a pretty frustrating one for a lot of advertisers online, whether you're in the health and wellness space directly or whether you are an agency managing a health and wellness account. So we're going to talk about, I'm not going to say workarounds with this, but we're going to talk about some ways you can manage this. Obviously, we don't know, just like with anything Meta kind of releases, we don't know how widespread this is, and we don't know the full scope of this update, or if Meta will bring out any flexible terms around this update. Obviously, there are concerns in wider industries, say like the skincare industry, where could it potentially be, because of what their product is and what it targets, that this may fall under the health and wellness space. There is also a concern within the industry of how difficult targeting is going to become now, because obviously if we're not tracking users and what users are doing, because we can't optimize towards bottom of funnel events, then how are we going to target the right users? Is meta targeting going to be impacted more widely? And there's a lot of products that don't fall under the health and wellness space, but might want to target that audience. So how are they going to do that now? Is that going to be impacted? It's just a huge update. And Meta says they're rolling it out because they are worried about user experience, and they are worried that it breaks certain policies around user privacy. So for instance, if they're purchasing a product because of a health condition, and that product is very specific about that health condition, very catered to that health condition, you then as a brand know that that user has that specific health condition. And it's just a whole privacy piece. So that's kind of their reasoning behind it. Is it a legitimate reason? Is it really because of that? We don't actually know, but that is what Meta is essentially saying. It's all about user privacy and user experience. So without further ado, how are we going to cater around this? what are we going to do to try and limit the impact as much as we can? Now, if you've already been hit by this update, the first thing you need to start doing is obviously optimizing towards the top of funnel events. So things like link clicks, things like awareness events, impressions, reach. I have seen a few advertisers online talk about optimizing towards on-site actions like view content and page views and stuff like that to try and bring a bit more of a quality user into your ads without optimizing towards those bottom of funnel actions. So you can always test that, and it is going to be a testing piece. Another thing you're going to really need to rely on is diversification within your marketing strategy. And this is why I always say you can't put all of your eggs in one basket when it comes to building your brand's digital presence, because it's so easy for these platforms to bring out these changes, bring out these restrictions, and for your whole business model to collapse essentially, or for your whole marketing strategy to collapse. Whereas if you have a diversified marketing strategy where you have different channels that are generating you revenue and income, it takes the pressure off of these platforms to have to bring you new customers all the time. Obviously, it's normal to have one platform that drives more customer acquisition because it performs better, but that doesn't mean you let other platforms fall by the wayside. So if you haven't started diversifying your marketing, now is the time. Start leaning on not only other ad platforms, because I would err with a side of caution when it comes to where you lean ad platform wise, because they may implement these changes themselves as well and follow suit with Meta, but start leaning on your organic social strategy, start implementing a really strong email marketing campaign, and really try and find a formula whereby you're utilizing different channels to not only drive customer acquisition, but remarket to this Facebook traffic and build your funnel that way rather than building your entire funnel within Meta Ads itself. This way you can use Meta still to optimize towards top of funnel users and then remarket to these users using different sources. The next thing I'm going to talk about is being mindful of your messaging and content that you now publish out in Meta Ads, and avoid relating your content back to something that is very specific to a user's health issues, and instead keep it more broad and make the content something that is still health orientated but could apply to anyone who is just looking for a more healthy alternative. I have seen marketers mention changing copy on website and pages. Of course, if there is any page that is linked to your Facebook ads account that directly mentions health issues when it comes to your product, then yes, by all means, edit that copy to be a bit more broad leaning. But before you go and changing your entire website copy and your entire website approach, I would be inclined to see how impactful that copy and that page is for other mediums before going to change it. So for instance, if you have a really strong SEO strategy and your website ranks really well for certain organic terms and you're driving revenue through those organic terms because of your website content, don't go changing it willy-nilly to cater to this one change on Meta Ads. Whenever you're changing website copy or your approach to your website, you want to do it strategically. Now, of course, if you haven't been impacted by restrictions of custom parameters on your ads, then it's time to start looking at third-party attribution programs that you can use to really make sure you are giving Meta the adequate credit it deserves for its marketing activity. When it comes to top of funnel activity, you can't have the expectation that it's going to drive you direct revenue off the back of that, because that is not what top of funnel is there to do. It's there to drive awareness for your brand. However, you don't want it to be hemorrhaging money, and you want it to wash its own face later down the funnel, which is where third-party attribution platforms are going to come in handy, because they allow you to essentially credit your conversion data based on how much it contributed to the user making that end purchase. Now, obviously, if you are impacted by the update to the point where you can't implement custom parameters, then you won't be able to lean on this as much. But if you can still implement custom parameters, definitely look into different attribution platforms where you can track how well your top of funnel activity is going, because it is a very easy way to drive awareness, but it's also a very easy way to waste money. And finally, while we're talking about top of funnel activity, this is where you need a really, really strong creative strategy, a creative strategy that caters to those top of funnel events and targeting new users. Without a strong creative strategy here, your top of funnel activity is not going to drive interest. It's not going to drive an audience. When it comes to leaning on bottom of funnel activity, we can kind of get a bit lazy with our bottom of funnel marketing, because it's either users who are about to convert anyway, they've already converted before, you just need to give them that nudge, and we don't have to rely on having a really, really strong visuals for this part. But top of funnel, because you are trying to attract new users and you are optimizing towards very, very new audiences to your brand, it's your opportunity to really get creative with your advertising and really inspire users to want to shop at your brand or shop on your brand, for your brand, however you phrase that sentence. But yes, this was just a very, very quick episode today because I just wanted to get one out since now the meta update has pretty much fully rolled out, I believe. Obviously, more advertisers might get pulled into it. So just keep an eye on that. If you are teetering on the edge of potentially being pulled into this update, then err with a side of caution on your content you post and still implement what I've spoken about here, because it could be the case you get pulled into the update as well. With anything like this, we just need to keep adapting and be mindful that other platforms could follow behind Meta. So continuously looking at ways to diversify our marketing strategy is key here. But I hope this episode was helpful. I wish you luck in navigating through this Meta update, and thank you for listening.